you and all your families safe and well during this period. I now ask Colin to take the tethering. Colin?
Thank you, Provost. Provost Buchanan.
Present.
Deputy Provost Ritchie.
Present.
Councillor Aitchison.
Here.
Councillor Alexander. Councillor Balfour.
Present.
Councillor Binney.
Present.
Councillor Bissett.
Present.
Councillor Black.
Present.
Councillor Blackwood.
Present.
Councillor Bowes.
Present.
Councillor Coleman.
Present.
We have apologies from Councillor Colley, Councillor Coombs,
Here.
Councillor Flynn,
Present.
Councillor Garner,
Present.
Councillor Goldie,
Adsum.
Councillor Grant,
Present.
Councillor Harris,
Present.
Councillor Hughes,
Present.
Councillor Kerr,
Here.
Councillor McHugh,
Present.
Councillor McCluckie,
Here.
Councillor Meiklejohn,
Present.
Councillor Monroe,
Present.
Councillor Murtagh,
I'm sure.
Councillor Nichol,
Here.
Councillor Nimmo,
Present.
Councillor Patrick,
Present.
Councillor Reid,
Present.
and Councillor Spears.
Present.
Provost, and we're also joined on the call this morning by the following officers: Kenneth Laurie, Chief Executive; Rona Geisler, Director of Development Services; Stuart Ritchie, Director of Corporate and Housing Services; Brian Pirrie, Democratic Services Manager; and Ian Henderson, Legal Services Manager.
Okay, thank you, Colin. That takes us to item 2 on your agenda, which is declaration of interest. And just for clarity, I will read this out. Members should declare any financial and non-financial interest they have in any item of business at the meeting, identifying the relevant agenda item and the nature of the interest. So I'm asking, has anybody got any declarations? No? Okay. Fine, thank you for that. Before we go into the agenda, we'd just like to say a few words. We are living in unprecedented times, as we all know. In a short space of time, this country has been tested like never before. There has been such a tragic loss of life affecting communities across the country. Our lives have become unrecognisable from before. I would like at this stage to praise the Council's response to the effects of the coronavirus pandemic. As an organisation, Falkirk Council has been magnificent. Each of our services and elected members have stepped up to the challenge of supporting our communities. Our officers, whether it's those in the front line like care workers and our refuse collectors, or our registrars, or those who provide a valuable support in less visible ways, such as providing business grants and community grants, are working so hard with tremendous dedication to the people of Falkirk, and I congratulate them. Also the NHS and all key workers, groups and communities, organisations, too many to mention, and also thousands of individuals across our communities. The present situation is going, and we will eventually have an opportunity to give them our thanks. I will now ask Councillor Meiklejohn, would you like to say a few words?
Thank you, Provost. I concur with everything you've said, that we are living in very unprecedented and uncertain times. This global pandemic will leave none of us untouched in some way. There's much anxiety around what lies ahead, and that's something as a council we must work to build hope and confidence as we develop in a recovery model and refresh and renew. I would, however, like to acknowledge the huge amount of work that has taken place by our staff and our communities during the last 6 to 7 weeks. There has been a huge effort and responsibility taken on by Falkirk Council staff alone, and many have been continuing to keep services working hard and keeping things going by working from home. Others who aren't able to work from home have volunteered to help and support our most critical services, and they are making a real difference in delivering that critical care to our most vulnerable. Our staff on the front line within health and social care, and indeed many of our other frontline staff have been carrying out a tremendous job under significant pressures, and their own personal anxieties have been set aside in order to be able to continue to deliver those services. And that is something that as a council, I and me personally as leader is very proud of them for doing, and setting aside their own particular anxieties and indeed putting themselves on the front line. We have also to acknowledge the work of our partners. There has been an amazing amount of collaboration across the sector with our partners in police, fire, health, and within the NHS. And without that collaboration and setting aside a lot of our own particular focus, we would not have been able to deliver the resilience response that we have had in doing that. I would also pay tribute to the community effort. It's an amazing effort by an army of volunteers. And again, they are the lifeline to our most critical. They know their communities the best. And I would also like to just thank all the elected members across the council for the support that they're giving within their community, because that leadership is something that is making things work as effectively as it is. Finally, Provost, I would like to just acknowledge that we have lost some of our citizens as a result of this virus, and our condolences go out to the families involved in that, and our heartfelt sorrow for what they've had to endure. Similarly to those that are continuing to fight this virus in our hospitals and at home, we wish them a speedy recovery and hope they have a positive outcome in going forward. I'm sure that other members at an appropriate time will have their own tributes to pay within their own communities, but I think there's been an amazing effort by everybody involved at this time, and we'd ask them to continue to give that dedication going forward, as we have still got some time to go before we see this pandemic off and we can get back to what will be a new normality. Thank you, Provost.
Well, thank you for those words. Councillor Bissett, would you like to say anything?
Thank you, Provost. I would echo the sentiments of yourself and the leader of the council. And I would say, as COVID-19 continues to devastate countries, towns and communities across the world, people are coming together to help one another now more than ever. Since the impact of the virus hit the UK, people have mobilised in their thousands to assist the most vulnerable in their communities. This pandemic has tested the resolve of all of us, and it's clear that when faced with adversity, we have all risen to the challenge to defeat this visible foe. We will overcome, and when this is all over, we will remember those we have lost. My heart goes out to all of those lives lost across the world and the UK, and in particular Falkirk district, each death creating unimaginable distress and grief within family and friends. Once this crisis is over, we can properly thank everyone, perhaps in some formal ceremony. So I just briefly want to thank the supermarket workers who have worked tirelessly to ensure the shelves are stocked for our weekly necessities. Thank you to the paramedics, midwives, nurses and doctors, carers, risking their lives to save lives. Thank you to the cleaners. Many of us can work from home, but cleaning cannot be carried out remotely. Cleaners have now become some of the frontline soldiers in this pandemic. Thank you to those who produce and deliver food and the goods necessary for our healthy existence. Thanks to those who keep our transport systems operating, preventing collapse of the nation's infrastructure. Thank you to the teachers who, by continuing to educate the children of key workers, allows doctors and nurses, scientists to focus on saving lives and analysing tests to allow the country to keep going, albeit with reduced activity. Thank you to all of our council employees who have worked hard and went an extra mile to keep the council going in this limited forum, while redeploying and adapting resources to assist the most vulnerable and most needy. And thank you to the 170 council employees who have also volunteered to support essential council services. Finally, Provost, thank you to everyone in Falkirk District who has stuck to the lockdown rules and in doing so have helped to save many lives. And I would just add that I would agree that all the elected members have worked together and we've all contributed in the community. So I would like to pay a tribute to every elected member in Falkirk Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bissett. Councillor Munro?
Thank you, Provost. I think that Robert seems to have thanked everyone here. Everyone in the council is working very hard to manage this unprecedented challenge, and care workers and others are providing a frontline role in scary circumstances, and we thank them all. The public have made an amazing effort to stay home, which is saving lives, and that's what we're all working for, to ensure that as few people as possible lose their lives. And now, as we come back together, we need to work towards a new normal using technology for our children, our businesses where dreams have perhaps unravelled and jobs lost. We need to provide a lead at a local level to support everyone in the community and to help us all bounce back. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Munro. Is there any of the independents who like to speak?
David Alexander
has joined the conference.
Okay then, no, we'll take us on now to item 3, which is the minutes of meeting of Falkirk Council held on the 9th of March 2020. Is there any questions arising from this minute? Take that as a no, fine. Thank you very much. That takes us to item 4, COVID-19 interim decision-making structure. I'd like to pass on now to Mr. Moody. Thank you, Mr. Moody.
Yes, thank you very much, Provost. Members will have before you 2 reports in relation to this item of business. The report that was issued with the original agenda, and there was a supplementary report issued on Monday following some further consultation and discussion that had been undertaken just at the point where the agenda had been issued last week. And as can be seen from the report, Provost, the purpose is to introduce a set of interim arrangements for the governance of the Council and to reinsert appropriate democratically accountable decision-making into the necessary decisions of the Council. And the proposals are to deal with that in 2 ways. The first of those is to establish an emergency executive which will exercise almost all of the powers of the Council and its committees, with the exception of regulatory matters and one further exception which is set out in the report. And the second set of proposals, which are now covered in the supplementary report, are those in relation to how we'll deal with planning matters during this interim period. And I think if there's one point I should make at the beginning, Provost, is that these are very much interim arrangements. They're there for the months of May and June. They'll take us through to the summer recess, and the hope is that we'll be able to go back to the normal decision-making structure in August. If that's not possible, and none of us know what the situation will be at that stage, then we will have had an opportunity to review and learn lessons from what has happened in May and June, and we'll come back to Council to ask for further interim arrangements to be made. But I emphasise that the expectation and hope is that we'll be able to go back to normal arrangements in August. If I can deal briefly with the 2 separate issues then. The first body is an emergency executive, which, as can be seen from the report, is intended to meet regularly on a fortnightly basis and to take necessary decisions in relation to the coronavirus emergency to the Council's recovery plan from the emergency situation and any other decision which is time critical. The purpose of it meeting regularly is that the body will be able to be fleet of foot and respond to any situation as it arises, and I think we'll all have noted over the past several weeks that this is a fast changing situation, and the aim of the body is to be able to deal with the situation as it changes. Moving on perhaps to the planning arrangements, and just to emphasise again that those which are proposed are those within the supplementary report, and the broad shape of that is to maintain the existing delegation as between members of the Planning Committee and the Director of Development Services, but to introduce some new arrangements in relation to the operation of the Planning Committee. Now, both the Planning Committee and the Emergency Executive will meet remotely by video conference, which will be something new for us as an organisation, but I'm confident it's something which we'll be able to achieve effectively. But one of the arrangements that will change in relation to the Planning Committee is there won't be an opportunity for site visits in public for obvious public health reasons. Likewise, the opportunities for deputations or hearings in person will be removed, but there will be an opportunity to have representations received in writing. And that's very much consistent with the approach recommended by the Chief Planner and undertaken within planning appeals themselves, operated by the planning reporters. So the plan is to maintain the 2 dates of the existing planning committee, and the membership will remain as it is at present. Provost, those in summary are the proposals which are before the Council this morning, but I'm happy to take any questions which members may have.
Thank you, Mr. Moody. You've heard Mr. Moody. I'll go to the leader of the Council, Councillor Nicholson. Is there any questions? There was an opportunity to contact officers if you had questions. I don't think this was taken up. But if anybody has any questions for Mr. Moody just now, would you like to come forward?
Provost, John Patrick here. Can I ask what provision is being made for licensing board and also the pensions fund?
Provost, I thank Councillor Patrick for his question. It's a good question. Largely for licensing board business, there will be an opportunity to defer most business until after the summer recess. There isn't a particular pressure for business in relation to liquor licensing for, I think, obvious reasons, in the sense that almost all licensed premises are closed at the moment, other obviously those which are off sales, which are still open. But there isn't a big backlog of business there. There's a possibility that there may need to be a licensing board meeting in June to undertake some more administrative tasks, but that's still under consideration at the moment as to whether that will be necessary. The point in relation to the Pensions Committee and Board is also a good one. That has its own unique governance arrangements, which involve other stakeholders being part of that committee, and that's been looked at separately from the arrangements in this report. And I'm in discussion with Mr. Smale on that matter as to whether there's any business which is so time critical that it would require a meeting of the Pensions Committee and or Board. But likewise, we would aim to do that by remote attendance rather than requiring people to come into the municipal building.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Moody. You happy with that answer?
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions before we go to the leader? Okay, Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you, Provost. I'm happy to move both the papers this morning. However, I would just wish to highlight that we have one of the largest emergency committees in the whole of Scotland, and while I appreciate that all members want to be involved in that process, it will, because of the sheer nature and the practicalities, require some self-discipline and managing the meetings. And as it would be essential business only at this stage, and though at that time, Crystal, I would hope there would be a reasonable amount of collaboration beforehand that would enable us to be able to make proper decisions in the process. I think we do have to try it and see how it goes, but it is an interim process and we will do our best to make it work. But with a large number that may well have some challenges in going forward, particularly around the video conferencing and how people would manage to conduct themselves within a debating area within that. But happy to move the papers as presented.
Thank you. Have we a seconder?
Hi, Provost. Happy to second and reserve the right to reply.
Thank you. Now ask Councillor Bishop wants to come in.
Thank you, Provost. Prior to this meeting, there's been much discussion with leaders and with the various groups. And the Labour group, within the Labour group, and the majority of questions were answered. There was quite a number of questions came up and they were answered prior to the meeting. Therefore, the Labour group are in agreement with the setting up of the emergency executive of 12 members as it reflects the current makeup of the Council. So we agree recommendations 2.11. Also, we agree that the supplementary report recommendation 2.1 replaces item 2.1.2 from the earlier report. And we agree that item 3 from the interim decision-making report, whereby we agree that these interim arrangements will cease to have effect at the commencement of the summer recess on the 26th of June. I think setting up these committees shows that we are moving forward and tentatively getting the Council moving again. So, towards some kind of new normal, which I'm sure public and businesses will welcome. And I know what Councillor Meikle-John's saying, that we'll just have to work together to sort of try and manage the meetings. But I have attended some Coastal Labour leaders meetings where there've been maybe 25 people on it, and it's worked pretty well. So I think we'll get there. We'll just need to work and take a step at a time. But we agree with the report, Provost. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Munro.
Thank you, Provost. We also, this has been submitted to members for something like a week now, and there have been no objections received to the recommendations. And I think everyone feels like, has been said before, that this is the beginning of a return to something more normal, and as such, it's a positive step on the road to recovery. So we're happy to support this.
Okay, thank you. So just to clarify the situation, we have the motion moved and seconded by Councillor Meikle-John. Is there anybody otherwise minded, or can you agree? Agree. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for your participation this morning. Just one other issue before you go. Friday, as you all know, is VE Day. Now, unfortunately, because of the corona pandemic, all the events have been cancelled. But what's happening is, on Friday, I will be going to the Falkirk War Memorial, where I will be placing a wreath at 11 o'clock for the 2-minute silence. This wreath will be on behalf of all elected members and all members of our community. So thank you very much for your time this morning. Stay safe out there, and we'll be in touch. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Provost.
Thank you.
Meeting closed. Thank you.